Hello there, one and all, and thank you very much for tuning in to episode 583 of Love at First Scent with me, Persolaise, live on YouTube. As always, whether you're watching the live or you're watching the recording, you are very, very welcome. Very quickly, for those of you watching live, this is the second of 3 planned videos for today. Alex is back. Hello again. Alex is saying hi from Graz. Jill Sander, I never tried one of this brand. See. Holly says hello again from Texas. Keep the comments coming, keep the questions coming, regardless of whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording. Okay, let's get a move on because we have 6 perfumes to talk about here. What is this? Right. This is what the brand is, Jill Sander, is calling their Olfactory Series 1. 6 perfumes that have come out all in one go. But they are by no means the first perfumes from Jill Sander. I am not an expert on the fashion world, but I am reliably informed that the very first Jill Sander perfume actually came out in the late 70s. And I know enough about the perfume side of things to be aware that some of the follow-up scents, particularly those that came out in the 80s, did take on did enjoy quite a strong following. I seem to remember lots of people loving Jill Sander 2. There were a lot of numbered ones, if you remember. Then there was a man. And actually, the brand, in its various guises, I think for a while it was owned by Prada. It may still be owned by Prada, and they gave their perfume licenses to various other companies. It did steadily keep releasing perfumes. And if any of you out there watching used to wear some of those 80s Jill Sander classics, please let me know. I'd love to be able to dig out a sample of some of those. As I say, a few of them have taken on a kind of legendary status. Anyway, the license for creating Jill Sander perfumes is at the moment with Coty, which is an interesting setup in the perfume world because they create lots of extremely commercial releases. You know, in some ways you couldn't be more commercial than Coty, but they're also trying to target the other end of the market, I suppose. You will be aware that they released their own kind of Infiniment Coty. It was called the Infiniment Coty range that I wrote about on my Substack, and they're trying to do the exclusive thing, I think, with Jill Sander, with this Olfactory series. Perfume by the Sea says recently picked up a bottle of Sun for about £8 new. See, that was a big Jill Sander perfume, wasn't it? Unless I'm mixing it up with another one. Dave NYC says heard mixed reviews but am intrigued. I have to say, as a range overall, as a collection of 6 perfumes, they get a thumbs up from me. I think they're interesting. They're not cheap, and some I like more than others. But as an expression of an aesthetic, and also as a kind of technical exercise, an olfactory exercise, they are fascinating. I don't know who the creative direction has been done by. I suspect it's somebody at Coty. But they've taken this intriguing line, not the kind of line that's taken very often, particularly with a sort of designer type brand, and they've decided that actually there will be a sort of olfactory common theme running in this series, and for this one they decided it would be aldehydes. Now, Comme des Garçons, I suppose, are the most famous brands to have done that kind of thing. They, as we know, they had their incense series, then they had a red series, didn't they? I mean, they used to actually release a lot of perfumes in series. And as an approach, I think that can work quite well. You usually get a few duds, but it is if it is done intelligently, and if it is done thoughtfully and genuinely, if it's done authentically, it does make you see things in the sorts of lights that you wouldn't otherwise have seen them. And this kind of aldehydic treatment of certain materials is intriguing. And it's also intriguing in terms of what it's not, because, for example, none of these is a Chanel No. 5. None of these takes that kind of cliched champagne bubble, powdery, light bulb fizzing type aldehydic route. And in fact, actually, none of these is an aldehydic floral particularly, or a floral. They are interesting, and each one in its own subtle way offers some kind of a surprise. And I guess it fits with that Jill Sander aesthetic, I mean, I think she as a designer was famously called the Queen of Less, because she was all about minimalism and she was all about muted colours, I think. I don't know what the brand's latest collections look like now. I do know that there are some, you know, that they are still creating clothes. But in terms of keeping in with this aesthetic, with this kind of black and white aesthetic, with the sans serif font, with everything being quite streamlined, it works. And some of them kind of do throw a spanner in the works, but I think we should start smelling. Fernanda says, will you be discussing the new Shalimar? I have reviewed it on my Substack, so you will find a link to my Substack in the video description below. Dying to know your thoughts on that one. Sorry if you already mentioned this today. Please don't apologise. Alien on Beauty says, I tried this at Selfridges and was quite impressed by this collection. Yeah, and the bottles are interesting as well, because they are kind of look like bell jars, except the entirety of the bell jar is the lid, is the cap, and you sort of lift it up and you see that the bottle is also in the shape of the bell jar. I mean, it reminds me of did Calvin Klein did a similar thing, was it in the 90s or in the early 2000s, with Contradiction, where the cap of the bottle was about 90% of the bottle, and you lifted up this great big massive thing. It's a clever way of sort of playing with expectations. Anyway, we should start smelling. We have pre-sprayed blotters for all 6 and pre-labelled blotters as well. So let me find. Let's start with, I suppose, the one that in a way is the most obvious one. The one that really does what it says on the tin and does it quite well. It's called Leaf. There we are. I'm not going to keep showing you every single one because you don't need to see them. And I think, yeah, it's by Julie Massé. She's done 2 of them. Also intriguing, I don't know if this was deliberate, but all of them bar one have been composed by women. Bit of a rarity still, that, in the perfume world. Anyway, how expensive are they, by the way? Alex asks. They're not cheap, but then, you know, what on earth is nowadays? If you go onto the Jill Sander website for wherever you happen to live, you'll see the prices, but they're not cheap. Anyway, Leaf. So, Leaf is green. Leaf is green, but it's also minty and citrusy and limey, and if you were looking for a cologne type scent to kind of cut through the heat of a muggy day, you could do a lot worse than Leaf. And because it is playing that green card, you can see how the aldehydes would come into it, because they kind of sharpen things up at the top and emphasize the citruses. It's very, very naturalistic, very realistic. You know, this could be an Hermès cologne. Perhaps it could even be an Hermès garden. But I guess maybe it's a little bit. It's more cologne style than the sort of slightly more involved compositions of the Hermès gardens. It could be a Lynn Harris Perfumer H type perfume. There is something very effortless and very convincing and actually quite chic about it, or at least about how it starts. So this might be a good time to pick up the press release and give you a little bit of the preamble that they've got here. I'm not going to read every single bit of it because it is quite long. But they say the first Jill Sander fragrance collection, well, I mean, it's not the first, but you know what I mean, fuses botany and technology in 6 minimalist unisex formulas in which the olfactory marks of aldehydes cut across key natural ingredients, giving every fragrance unique shapes and volumes. The leading idea was to change perspective and recalibrate traditional proportions, creating radical compositions that use only the essential, the fragrance infused with 3 key natural ingredients, the synthetic molecules of aldehydes, alcohol from upcycled carbon emissions, and water, reaching the highest degree of olfactory clarity and expression. And clarity is a good word, actually, because they're all quite clear in their own, sometimes surprising ways. As an olfactory translation of Jill Sander's design codes, the Olfactory Series 1 set individuality front and centre. It balances intimacy and presence, feminine and masculine, day and night, humanity, nature and technology, etc., etc. I think we can probably skip those bits. Let's get on to Leaf, created with Julie Massé. They say, Leaf is a cloud of greenness, fresh, unexpected and electrifying. I think cloud is too fluffy a description, actually. It's a shard of light. It's a beam of light of greenness. The remembrance of a freshly picked black crim tomato, no idea what that is, fruit and leaves in a Mediterranean garden. Thanks to the aldehydes, the combination of upcycled key lime, CO2 extracted cardamom, and yes, you do get, it's the cooling effect of the cardamom is very, very pronounced here, and the breath of corn mint from India has a citrus mandarin sparkle. The composition would have been suave and velvety if the creative use of the aldehydes would not enhance its greenness with an impactful, hyper-realistic, electric tone, turning it into a fragrance which is equally sharp and soft, bright, leafy and zesty. You know, when a description is quite prosaic like that, those are usually the ones that tend to be the most accurate ones. The more flowery they are, the more you think that the marketing department are really, really trying very, very hard to sell this thing to you. But they have actually very, very accurately described what it is that we're smelling here. And it feels as though they don't need to do the hard sell because they know that they've created a very, very attractive cologne-like composition. So where's pre-sprayed leaf? Here's pre-sprayed leaf. Yvette says, oh wow, Jill Sander number 4 was my signature for almost 25 years. I know a lot of those numbered ones had hugely devoted following. So pre-sprayed. Yeah, interesting. It hasn't collapsed. It's still got that kind of citrusy, cardamom-y, woody feel to it. Not an over-reliance on musks at all. Nicely done. Nice work. Technically nice work. Okay. Next, what can I do? I suppose next we could do one that is another one of the ones that I think is a bit on the less interesting side. And that's their black tea. And who was black tea done by? I will tell you in a moment. If memory serves, I think black tea was... Yeah, black tea is Nathalie Lorson. Very, very experienced, talented perfumer, of course. So here we go. This is black tea. Julie Massey is very good with fresh notes, says Alex. Yes, I would be inclined to agree. Anyway, black tea, Nathalie Lorson. Yeah, I think this was the one that out of the 6, in a way, I found the least convincing. Tea is so difficult to do well in perfumery, and in fact I think over the years we've come to accept that tea in perfumery is actually not really the same as tea in real life, and we always seem to need to put perfumery tea in inverted commas. There are some that perfumes that have genuinely done tea. This actually seems to be more about kind of woodiness and a sort of apricot-y note, and then that's when you realise that it's meant to have a kind of osmanthus element to it. You think, oh, okay. Although maybe it could be a sort of variety of tea that I'm not overly familiar with. It's a bit less engaging, a bit less involving, and a bit more wan and just a bit less distinctive, a bit less interesting. What do they say about it? In this modern, ambery, spicy fragrance made of unexpected associations, the aldehydes highlight the warmth of osmanthus from China, upcycled cinnamon from Sri Lanka. Actually, you do get a cinnamony note, and calling it an amber is probably the best way of describing it, but I'm not sure that that's what you think of, what you think you're going to get when you have a perfume called black tea. Although maybe that's the surprise, though. I mean, I need to listen to what I was saying myself a few minutes ago, that they are all in their own way a little bit surprising, and maybe the surprise of the black tea is that it's the amber one. Upcycled cinnamon from Sri Lanka, and black tea, carbon dioxide extracted to obtain a pitch as close as possible to its natural note. The idea was to play with very deep and intense matter of travelling without moving, using the faculty of our senses to exceed the ordinary, taking us elsewhere. The cinnamon adds a woody clove element. The osmanthus infusion is warm, silky and comfortable. Jill Sander black tea has a smoky black leather tonality. It's... At the moment, smelling it, because the cinnamon seems quite prominent, and it's making me think of Comme des Garçons White, which is a bit ironic that for one brand cinnamon went into a perfume called White, and in another brand it goes into a perfume called Black Tea. But maybe this will be the crowd-pleasing one because it's an amber. What's the pre-sprayed blotter doing? Here we go. Gender Goblin says, green tea with osmanthus is a favourite of mine in late summer. Oh, okay. Alex says, tea is often more a strange idea of greenish notes than the actual tea one expects. I completely agree with you. Anyway, Pre-sprayed black tea. It dries down to a kind of generally leathery, smoky amberiness. It's just a bit uncertain, I think, whereas the others are stronger and more distinctive. Okay, let's do smoke so that we leave my three favourites for the end. Smoke is by Smoke is by a perfumer I'm pretty sure I've never mentioned on this channel before, somebody called Bérénice Watteau. I had to look her up, and she doesn't seem to have very many perfumes to her name on the internet. If anybody knows anything else about, any more about her, please do let me know. But I'm pretty sure that is the first time I'm saying her name here on this channel. And smoke, here we go. Let's just spray smoke. Smoke, I guess, is the idea that would most obviously lend itself to aldehydes. Yeah, and what you get is the kind of candle waxy aldehydes that seem a little bit fatty, but also a bit like snuffed candles or matches. They're very, very interesting material, those particular types of aldehydes. I don't know which ones they happen to be, but they're kind of off-putting and inviting in equal measure. And I guess a candle might have been the inspiration here. It's a very, very chilled smoke, a very, very cooling sort of smoke, and a very austere kind of smoke. So, maybe a really, really forbidding, all marble interior, gleaming Catholic church that has never actually had a human being set foot inside it. There is something very, very sterile about this. And I think because of that, it also makes me think of the Archives 69 from État d'Orange, a release from several years ago, done by Christine Nagel. And that was a kind of interesting essay on really, really super chilly, super austere aldehydes. It is curious. And there is something warmer coming through to give that necessary sense of contrast with the coolness. But it's a very serious, very gaunt sort of perfume. Smoke, what do they say? The depth of the woody, decidedly smoky, spicy notes of upcycled cedarwood, cade from Spain, and carbon dioxide extracted LME is cut by the clean, vertical strokes of the aldehydes. An interplay of shadows and light, heat and coldness, refined by fresh laundry notes and traversed by oud. Okay. If they felt they needed to use that word in one of their, in the perfume, fine, but this is not an oud scent, okay? That's really strange. That's really taken me by surprise. Traversed by oud facets, they say. The smell of clothes drying near a fireplace. Jill Sanders' smoke is equally dry and enveloping, masculine and feminine, enigmatic and bright. I think enigmatic and bright, there is something odd about it. Laundry notes and oud, says Alex. Yeah, I know, I wasn't seeing that, didn't see that coming. Helter Skelter Jones says, not related to Sanders, but I just noticed that your next video will be your 660... No, it can't be, because we're on 5.8 something, aren't we? That can't be right, can it? Okay, forget the oud thing. I mean, I'm not getting... I get a bit of woodiness and a bit of darkness, but this is not an oud composition. It is much more just about those waxy, smoky aldehydes and maybe something like cade, maybe the leatheriness of cade. Pre-sprayed, where is it? Pre-sprayed smoke. Now, I haven't smelt this pre-sprayed one before, but my feeling with this one was that this would be the one that would fade away the fastest. Okay. No, it's still there, and it's still kind of doing that chilly, kind of unsmiling and blue smoke. There is something quite icy blue about this composition. It's almost as though... I mean, yes, I know it's supposed to be smoke, and smoke is related to fire, but I picture dry ice here, I think, with this one. So it's that kind of smoky effect. A dry ice creating this very, very white, opaque smoke that's sort of tinged with blue. I think that's how this fragrance operates, and it is intriguing. It's an intriguing one. And then we get to the three that I think are very, very definitely worthy of your attention. What should we start with? Let's start with Miel, which of course is the French word for honey. And this is by Mathilde Bijawi, a perfumer whose work I never managed to keep up with, but I really, really tend to love her work. She was the one who did Like This as a kind of collaboration with Tilda Swinton for État d'Orange. Let's get my pre-labeled blotter, and this is where this range actually really starts coming into its own, I think, because it manages to somehow be minimalist and streamlined and elegant, and yet introduce an element of something a bit more forbidding, a bit more threatening. Yeah, I do like them. So, honey, tough note to do in perfumery. Funnily enough, just the other day I published a Substack where I was writing about Cartier's L'Envol, very, very sadly discontinued, but that was a masculine which pushed a honey note forward. This definitely pushes honey forward, but it's a honey that's malty and deep dark brown. There is nothing kind of overly sugary or sickly about it. It's a honey that really, really feels as though it's come out of the earth. You know, you can almost sort of picture the bees going off to some fields and then going into their hives and producing the honey. And there's something carroty about it, there's something rooty about it. And yet the idea has also been expressed very, very simply and very honestly. It's not trying too hard, it's not trying to be too fussy, too baroque. Eloise says, I'm liking the names. This house hasn't been on my radar. Well, I don't think it's been on anybody's radar much lately. Alex says, I adore Like This. The Italy, Like This is so good. Several backup bottles are living in my cupboard. I think you should check this one out. It's not orange like This. You know, it doesn't have that ginger pumpkin thing. But it's got that Mathilde Bijawi quirkiness and naturalness. It's a honey that seems to be coming to us on a plank. It's almost like somebody's poured some honey on a plank of very, very dark, rich wood. It's nicely done. I'm very, very impressed with it. They say that it's woody, savoury and magnetic. Cut by the sharp molecules of the aldehydes, the essence of upcycled cedarwood, vetiver from Madagascar and carbon dioxide extracted jasmine grandiflorum become brighter and vertical, reaching radiant floral notes. If they're saying this is their floral, yeah, okay, I guess they had to say that one is the floral. The nuanced darkness of the buckwheat honey, the fragrance's main olfactory inspiration, together with the flowers lurking beneath the surface and the accents of the aldehydes, are key in this original, elegant fragrance. Jules Sander Miel is the smell of home when everything is peaceful and clear, when we have the feeling we're safe and strong, and we can use our freedom to change. I guess maybe they're trying to make it sound a little bit cuddly because they don't want it to be off-putting, but I think the likes of you and I are going to be attracted by this darkness it has, and it's also golden. It genuinely sort of glows with the goldenness of honey. Nice piece of work. Pre-sprayed Miel. Buckwheat sounds intriguing, says Menchie Extract. Well, buckwheat honey, they say, so that's something very specific, isn't it? Pre-sprayed Miel. Yeah, okay, it's quietened down, and some of that darkness has given way to a sort of gentler, cedary woodiness, but it is fascinating. It is fascinating, and I can't remember the last time I smelt a honey note that actually kind of takes you on this journey from gold to woodiness. It's like a sunset almost. It's like an olfactory expression of a sunset. Holly says, I couldn't wear Spice Must Flow, but this one sounds very nice. No, Spice Must Flow, again, we seem to be referencing État d'Orange a lot here. Spice Must Flow was quite a demanding piece of work. Let's move on to the one done by Paul Garlin, which is the only one done by a man here. And this is called Coffea. So it's not coffee, but Coffea. And this is very, very instantly and easily attractive. I'm not sure how much of a coffee scent it is, but it's nicely done. The first thing you get when you smell it, and I guess this is the surprise, you get a beautiful sweep of iris. That powdery, earthy, slightly carroty, white, rooty feel of iris, and then beneath that you start detecting the richer, darker, more sort of roasted elements of a coffee note coming through. And then somehow, somewhere along the way, this gets translated into a really elegant, smooth, skin-friendly, gentle suede perfume. This is their most kind of overtly, in this collection, the most overtly tender, leathery one. And it's a very, very elegantly done leather. I mean, Paul Garlin's doing some interesting work. He is definitely a name to watch. Alex says, Iris, that sounds interesting. It is interesting. This is a very, very interesting one. And Gender Goblin tells us that buckwheat honey is a Brittany speciality. Thank you very much for that. What do they say about Coffea? Created with Paul Garlin, a floral ambery fragrance with the vibrant, dazzling facets provided by the aldehydes across the carbon dioxide extracted coffee beans, the upcycled orris, and the Peru balsam from El Salvador, producing a clash and a synthesis of two worlds. Outside, it is white and silent. Inside, in a timbered room full of people, the morning sunlight and the smell of ground coffee after the brew. Gilsander Coffea fully exhales both its greener and roasted notes. Orris roots let out all the powdery scents they develop in the 3 years it takes them to mature. Peru balsam, sensual on the skin, makes the fragrance ambery and nuanced. An unusual combination it is, with tiny constant movements that add depth and an edge to the whole, opening up the imagination. It's nicely done. Does it remind you of Iris Torrefier, says Mitra. Hello, by the way. No, it didn't, but that could just be my memory. I can't remember Iris Torrefier very... I mean, I remember it was Garlin, but... And hasn't it gone, by the way? Didn't they, get rid of it almost as soon as it arrived? James says, very curious about this one, hope to be able to smell it soon. I hope you get to smell it as well. And let's just go to the pre-sprayed Coffea. What's it doing? Yeah, it's... I've worn this one. I've worn this one on skin a few times, and it just kind of goes into a gentle, very, very attractive haze of perfume, and that'll be the balsamic notes. That'll be the Peru balsam probably doing that powdery, balsamic thing. But it means it's very, very attractive, and, dare I say it, it's got a touch of the Garlins about it. It really made me think of things like L'Instant for men. It made me think of the Cologne 68 that they did many years ago. This is, I suppose, in a way, the most classically French one. And I guess it's interesting that it's come from Paul Garlin. And then finally, really, really surprising, wasn't expecting this at all. This is Earth, and it's the other one by Julie Massé, I think I'm right in saying. Yes. Let us spray. Oh yes, and Mitra saying it is discontinued. I know, that didn't last very long at all. Now, Earth, I was not expecting this sort of profile, scent profile, at all from this brand, from this collection. Yeah, because this is Earth. It is, you have gone into a dank, musty, dusty cellar, and there is some, there is some earth, and you sort of stick your fingers into it, and you've got the smell of this, the smell of the ages. You've got the smell of the patchouli. You've got the dampness of the patchouli, the brownness of the patchouli. But what's making it intriguing and interesting is a kind of rosy aldehydic thing happening at the top. It's the last thing I was expecting from this, because this is actually, a lot of people are going to find this a genuinely challenging scent. It is not a million miles away from the original Bat from Zoologist. I mean, it is nowhere near as crazy as Bat, and it doesn't do that whole Bram Stoker's Dracula, the vampires, coming out of their graves thing that the original Bat did. But it's not a million miles away from it. And the contrast between the gentleness of its rose and the full-on earthiness of that earth note, that patchouli note, the contrast is fascinating and really, really commendable that they've done that. What do they say about it? The smell after the rain, small puddles of water, the first memory of a matsutake mushroom. Ooh, what are they? And it is fungal, actually. There is definitely something fungal about it. Matsutake mushroom, the generosity of the earth. An inspiration made real by the meticulous combination of upcycled rose, damascena, absophior up extract, rose centifolia from grass, and the CO2 extracted patchouli leaves, with the aldehydes turning everything into a hyper-detailed image, the high-resolution rendition of something wet, organic, and in motion. Totally agree. It is wet and organic, and there is something really, really vibrant and alive about it. Nature and innovation, with its surprising formula merging the two roses' delicate features, the dense facets of the mushroom, and the wet and earthy notes of the patchouli leaves. Jil Sander Earth is a contemporary interpretation of the iconic chypre rose structure. I mean, okay, I guess if you're going to say because it's a rose and a patchouli, it's a chypre. But it ain't like what, you know, this is no Mitsuko, okay? It does sound interesting, says Alex. It is fascinating. And let's just very, very quickly do the pre-spray blotter, because time is moving on. Yeah, it doesn't stay as strange, and maybe surprisingly, it's the rose that dominates in the base, but that patchouli thing is still there, that strangeness is still there, and that is what makes me give it a thumbs up, because they haven't gone the easy route with all of them. Yes, okay, they've done leaf and black tea, which are a little bit safer, a bit more predictable. But as a collection, some genuine thought has gone into this. And I love the fact that there's also an olfactory theme running through it. And I wonder if they're going to keep doing this. I wonder if Olfactory Series 2 is going to, focus on a different sort of material. So, yes, it's pricey. But this set, I think, is quite reasonably priced. Last time I looked, I think you can get all 6 of these. I think it was it £140 or £130, something like that, which, I mean, okay, obviously is not cheap, but it's quite good to get 10 mils of 6 perfumes. Do check them out. An interesting return to the perfumery game from Jil Sander. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to round up this video now because we need to allow time to come back for another short one, something very, very different from what we've done before. But thank you very much for watching. I will see you in a bit. Bye now.